是和陶溪川玻璃工作室联合举办的艺术家系列讲座，我是大家的主持人及翻译杨晨月。请关注我们的官方微信公众号陶溪川文创街区获取更多资讯。现在请大家把手机调成静音，并关闭闪光灯。讲座过程中如果有任何问题，可以先记录下来。演讲结束的问答环节，请大家踊跃参与。一切正常的话，我们的讲座就正式开始了。今晚参与讲座分享的艺术家是来自荷兰艺术家工程师 Durk Valkem。今晚讲座的主题是诗性建构主义。讲座中Durk 将会分享玻璃工作室运动和取料炉的历史，以及他作为玻璃艺术家和工程师的独特经历，和观众一同欣赏他的作品。
Thank you all for coming tonight. I was asked to give this lecture, and I decided to not only talk about my own work, but more importantly talk about the history of studio glass, since it's really at the beginning here.
非常感谢大家让我来做这场讲座，然后我决定不仅仅是分享一些关于我个人的创作，我也想要分享一些关于玻璃工作室运动的历史，因为在中国来说这是一个非常全新的运动。
My introduction to glass was at quite a young age. I was about eight years old here when I was first visiting the factory where my father was teaching, and he was also a freelance designer.
我很年轻的时候就已经在接触热玻璃了，这是我8岁的时候在热玻璃工作室，然后由我的父亲带着我进入到这个领域。
This is one of my father's designs for production.
刚刚那个是他父亲做的一个这是他父亲做的一个设计，是一个工业产品的设计。
I don't know what I do wrong, but this is my father and a master glass blower from the factory working on one-off items or unique work. This is actually one of my father's pieces that was given to the Chinese chairman in the 70s, so it should be in a collection somewhere in this country. Yeah, there's an automatic timing on it, which is not.
刚刚第一张图片是他的父亲，是一个非常有名的玻璃艺术大师，在一个吹制的工厂里面。然后这一件作品是他父亲完成的一个送给中国的一位将军的一件玻璃艺术作品。
To explain how simple glass blowing can be, this is a drawing also by my father actually of how to build a small test furnace with a simple ceramic crucible, the ceramic or teacup actually. The teacup would be very simple to find here, and with 36 bricks, actually a few more, you can build a small furnace.
这是他父亲设计的手稿，也是一个小型的玻璃的容料炉和取料炉。然后他想给大家展示一下，其实要融化热玻璃，最开始并不是需要很复杂的设备，这就是一个30多块的陶瓷的砖，然后里面有一个陶瓷的小杯子，用来装热玻璃。
And good friends of us, Ann Wolf, a designer in a Swedish factory, had been talking about starting her own studio for many years, but was hesitant to take the step from being a celebrity designer for Costa glass factory to start her own business. So one time my father visited her with a pile of bricks in his car and a small burner, and they built a small glass furnace.
这是他们一个共同的好友，当时他是想要开始自己的事业，然后去建立一个自己的玻璃工作室。当时他也很迟疑，然后他的父亲就和他们一起在一个角落里用几块砖，用一个小的加热装置，就这么建起了一个小的玻璃的容料炉。
And we put a small crucible in, melted glass, and a few hours later we were blowing glass using an old bed frame as a bench.
他们花了几个小时的时间去建造这个炉子，然后又过了几个小时，他们就已经开始在吹玻璃了。然后用的是非常简陋的设备，就坐在一块木板上就可以开始吹制了。
Another, for me, important moment was discovering a gas burner that was quite revolutionary I'm talking about 1972, so it's quite a few years ago. It's a gas burner developed for industry, but I tried it on a glass furnace and it worked very well.
对他来说，在1972年，这是一个很重要的时刻，就是他发现了这个燃气的点火装置。这本来是用在其他工业上的，但他尝试着把它用在了热玻璃制作工艺里面，然后他也比较成功。
And I was asked by Anne Wolf, the designer, who collaborated with a master glassblower, a master gaffer from the Orrefors factory, Wilkie Adolfsson, to build a studio for them. And I have a tradition, or we have a tradition in the family that when you build a glass furnace, a glass furnace has a soul, and you have to be friends with the soul by offering a small glass of liquor. So here we are first, of course, testing the liquor, Mau Tai or whiskey or whatever, before actually putting it under the heart of the furnace.
这是他们一个共同的好友，也是一个玻璃吹制的大师。然后他们在一起完成了一个玻璃容料炉的建设。然后对他们来说，完成一个容料炉就像建造了一个灵魂一样。他们想要分享这个灵魂，所以他们有一个家族传统，就是一旦一个容料炉被建造完成，他们就要一起分享一杯烈酒。
And I started building the furnace on site, so not like here when it is built somewhere else and then transported, but I built it on site.
就是他在就实地现场去建造这个容料炉，就不像我们目前的设备是在海外建设好以后再运过来，他是直接在当场就建造的。
Which, by the way, took more than 3 months of work.
这个花了他3个月的时间来建造。
And I designed a system with the heat from the furnace. It's a gas-fired furnace, heating the annealer, where you cool the glass, and also the heat from the annealer and the furnace, preheating the combustion air, but also heating hot water to heat another building for the grinding workshop.
这是一个比较综合的加热设备，它既有一个退火炉的作用，然后也是一个容料炉，同时它还会再加热水，然后给另外一幢建筑供暖。
and the floor of the studio is wood. It's very comfortable to work on.
然后这个工作室地板是木质的，非常舒服。
But it all started in 1960, actually before 1962, with an American artist, ceramist, by the way, Harvey Littleton, who decided he wanted to have a small studio to be able to work with glass like he was able to work with ceramics.
这一切的源头都是来源于这一位艺术家，他是一个玻璃艺术家，也是一个陶瓷艺术家。这源于他的一个想法，就是他想要在自己的小工作室里面去创作玻璃作品，就像陶瓷艺术家可以在自己的工作室创作陶瓷的作品一样。
And for us, especially for my father, it all started also his friendship with Harvey Littleton in 1964 during the charter meeting of the World Crafts Council in New York.
这是在1960几年的时候，他的父亲和这位大师是非常好的朋友，他们在一起工作，在纽约来完成这一个工作室的建设。
And he came to the conference with a complete glass studio in the back of his small truck.
他在那个一个研讨会上，把他所有的装备都放在一个小卡车上，然后在研讨会上展示了他的设备。
And this led to the whole movement was really one of the major aspects of it was that it was very open and very transparent, and everybody was hungry for information, but also everybody was sharing information. So making a small drawing of the furnace that they were using, and sharing recipes for glass, and sharing techniques.
这是一个非常这个运动因为在美国就是将玻璃艺术转变成一个个人创作的工作室，是一个叫玻璃工作室运动。然后这个运动呢，刚开始也是一个非常小，但是非常透明、非常分享的一个运动。大家都对这一方面的知识非常的饥渴，但同时大家也在很积极的去分享包括如何去设计、去制作一个取料炉，如何去完成这个玻璃的配方，以及一些技术，所有的东西都是很透明、很分享的。
And in 1968, my father, Durk Valkem, was asked to take over Harvey Littleton's teaching position at the university in Madison, Wisconsin, in America, and to run the glass program that was set up by Harvey Littleton. And that is another very important aspect of studio glass. It's not so much that people were building studios and making their own glass, but the fact that glass studios, glass blowing was accepted and introduced into academia, and was becoming an integral part of many colleges and universities all over over America, really led to an enormous explosion of artists and of interesting work being made.
在那个年代，玻璃艺术这样个人工作室的形式被非常广泛的传播到学术界，然后很多的大学院校都开始开设这样的课程和专业，这也使得玻璃艺术在美国能够有一个爆炸性的发展。在那个时候，1968年，他的父亲也替代了刚刚提到那位玻璃大师，在威斯康星州替代了他的玻璃工作室玻璃专业的教职，开始在那边授课。
And he came to America with introducing a lot of European techniques, like the use of color bar, concentrated colors, which they didn't know about in America in 1968.
在1968年的时候，他的父亲将很多欧洲比较先进的玻璃吹制技术传到了美国，包括这个如何使用色料，如何就是色料是一根棍一样的，然后把它融成一个泡，然后给它覆盖到另一个泡上，这样的工艺也被传入到了美国。
And there was a lot of contact between different people working with glass, both in industry and in academia, and people were traveling and with their work, showing it to colleagues, trying to sell it in galleries.
在那个时候，工业生产方面的艺术家和学术界的艺术家都在很积极的去传播自己的作品，他们就把自己的玻璃作品放在自己的车后座，然后开始到处游走，到处分享，然后并且试图在画廊里面去售卖他们的作品。
So this is work by Harvey Littleton on top of the car, and Joe Myers and my father, Durk Valkem.
车上那个作品就是刚刚提到的那个玻璃大师 Harvard 他的作品，然后在车子旁边的是他的父亲和另外一位艺术家。
And at one point during the 2 semesters, they were invited to go to California to the two centers that were set up by Marvin Lipovsky, and to do demonstrations.
这个时候，他的父亲他们被邀请到加利福尼亚去展示他们的玻璃吹制工艺。
And of course, at lunchtime, the old teachers disappeared for lunch. And I came along as well. I was 16 years old at that time, but they were enjoying themselves with good food and lots of wine. And after a while, I got bored. I went back to the studio, and all the students were there waiting for the 2 masters to come and give a lecture. So I decided to start as a, how do you call it, if a concert by a band, there's always a unknown band starting, how do you call it?
就在那个时候，他的父亲和另外那位艺术家，他们2位大师在这个学校里，然后在午餐的时间，这些大师都不见了，他们都去吃饭，然后喝了很多酒。然后那个时候他只有16岁，然后他走到这个吹制工作室以后，发现学生们都在等着他父亲上课，然后他就像一个乐队预演一样，他就先自己在角落里先开始吹玻璃。
And then when he came back to the Netherlands, to Holland, with lots of information and drawings and schematics, and he was the acting head of the Art Academy in Amsterdam. So he found a way to start a glass department at the academy.
当他父亲回到欧洲，回到荷兰以后，因为他是阿姆斯特丹艺术院校的校长，所以他带回来了很多的草图和想法，然后他也开始正式的在阿姆斯特丹建设这个玻璃艺术专业。
And his first student was from Sweden, Åsa Brandt, and he gave her the design for the small furnace. And after, I think 3 months in Amsterdam, she went back and built her own little furnace, and was the first free glass artist in Sweden.
这是他父亲的第一个学生，是一个来自瑞典的学生。然后他花了3个月的时间，如何去建造这个小型的取料炉。然后3个月以后，瑞典就出现了第一台小型的热玻璃取料炉。
And this is the studio at the Art Academy in Amsterdam in 1972 or something like that.
这是阿姆斯特丹艺术院校在1972年的玻璃工作室。
And with the knowledge and technology in those days, it meant that you had to rebuild a furnace every year, or sometimes even every half year. And I was a student at the academy, and I thought it was a waste of time to keep rebuilding the same way every time.
在当时的技术来说，他们这个取料炉每1年或者半年都要重新去搭建一次，然后他就觉得这个事情很浪费时间。
That's where my interest in glass technology started, and I developed a different furnace design that lasted 3 years, not 1 year.
然后那个时候就是他开始对玻璃设备的建设这个事情开始有兴趣，然后他重新设计了一款玻璃取料炉，这个炉子可以维持3年而不是1年。
And in the early 70s, there was in Europe also a big interest in glass and in the new developments in glass, and a lot of contact between people from industry, free designers, people that had a small studio, and there was a lot of people organizing small symposia, small gatherings. This was a Italian guy living in Switzerland who organized a conference in 1972 in Zurich. He was a lamp worker, but with lamp working you can also you can make scientific machines. But you can make little clowns and giraffe and things, but you can also make really nice designed work with that technique.
就是70年代早期，那个时候玻璃艺术开始蓬勃的发展，很多工厂的工人，然后设计师，很多的玻璃艺术家和小型画廊的建造者，他们都开始对玻璃艺术这个事情感兴趣。然后画面上这一位就是一个来自意大利的灯工玻璃艺术家。然后对于灯工玻璃这个工艺来说，它既可以去建造一些用于化学实验的一些设备，比较精密的仪器，也可以去做一些非常有意思的小的雕塑，小型的可爱的东西，也可以用来做一些非常当代的艺术性的设计。
I applied for a postgraduate study in Prague at the Uprum college that was run by Professor Stanislav Libensky, and this was in 1974-75. This is Mr. Libensky.
这是1974年、1975年的时候，那时候他正在布拉格由李宾斯基创办的艺术学校学习。然后这一位就是我们李宾斯基大师。
And this is my colleagues at the Uprum, the drawing class. maybe you know some of these people, since you've been there a lot.
这是当时他的同事和同学们在布拉格的那个艺术院校。
Of course, Stanislav Libensky and his wife Jaroslava Brichtova are very well known for their cast work, and they were collaborating with industry to develop special colors for them. And this is just a sample of some of the nuances that they were working with.
玻璃艺术大师李宾斯基和他的夫人是非常有名的铸造玻璃艺术家，然后他们也在和一些工厂的生产者合作，然后刚刚那个图片就只是一个非常小部分他们实验的颜色的样本。
Now, in 1976, the Royal College of Art in London organized a conference, the Hot Glass Conference, and a lot of people from all over the world, from America, from the Czech Republic, from Sweden, Holland, France, everybody gathered because everybody was hungry for meeting their friends, for exchanging information. This is Dale Chihuly and Carpenter that were collaborating at that moment, doing a demo. Wilkie Adolfsson, the master from Sweden, doing a demo. It was the first time that industry picked up the technology behind small studio glass, supplying refractory for a small Labino-style furnace.
在1976年的英国伦敦皇家艺术学院，当时的热玻璃研讨会非常热烈的开展，全世界的艺术家，包括欧洲的、美国的，都汇聚到那个研讨会，因为大家都非常的饥渴，想要去交换信息，去共享知识。然后刚刚那个图片是大卫齐胡利和另一位大师在合作，然后再往下也是另一位玻璃吹制大师。然后在那个时候，工业生产第一次能够支持小型的玻璃工作室的设备，这是当时工业生产出来的，用来做小型的玻璃吹制窑炉的一个设施。
This is 1979, Kyoto in Japan, a World Crafts Council gathering, and I was given a travel grant from the Dutch state to visit. So I was there with many people from all over the world, and of course especially interested in glass, but also in ceramics.
这是在1969年的京都，日本，然后当时也是新一届的研讨会召开，然后他当时也去了，当时也是全世界很多的艺术家都汇聚起来，有玻璃的，也有陶瓷的。
And I met quite a number of local people, Japanese people, and I was given the address of this glassblower in Tokyo, who was still operating a coal-fired furnace that was quite usual in the 1940s and 30s, and maybe probably even earlier than that.
在日本的时候，他也结识了很多当地的日本好友。这是一位日本的玻璃吹制艺术家。然后他比较特别的是，他有用烧煤的热玻璃炉。然后这个是在1940年代比较流行的一种样式。
And his family were blowing lamp bulbs for electric lighting, which was before the big war it was a cottage industry, so there was hundreds, maybe thousands of small glass studios all over Japan, blowing these thin glass bulbs.
在那个时候，他的家庭他们是吹制玻璃灯泡。在玻璃艺术还没有兴起之前，在日本分布的几千几百个这样小型的作坊，就是去生产一些工业用的小东西。
And in the 50s to 60s, this production was taken over by industry, doing it much faster, much cheaper. So many of these small studios disappeared.
在50-60年代，这种灯泡制作就是被工业流水化的生产给取代了，所以非常非常多这样小型的玻璃吹制作坊就从此以后就消失了。
And he has a small pot-shaped crucible out of refractory clay that is embedded in coal, in burning coal, and he can reach enough temperature to melt glass.
是一个像水瓶一样有细长脖子的小型的陶瓷的瓶子，然后它是被煤炭所包围，然后它可以用煤炭燃烧的热度来融化玻璃来进行吹制。
And he fires up the furnace every morning, and then after a couple of hours he can start making glass. And he discovered that there was a market for glass chimes that you have in the window, and there's a little thing in the middle, and the wind will move it, and you hear cling, 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 cling. And this sound makes you feel cooler than when you don't hear the sound.
他每天早上都会先烧这些煤炭，然后过了几个小时以后，这个热玻璃就融化可以用了。他当时就是在做一个类似于风铃那样子的东西。
And he proved a theory that I've had for many years, that art historians have been claiming that glass blowing was discovered in Palestine area only after they discovered a metal blowpipe. And I've always thought that was absolutely, well, excuse my words, bullshit. That's not how glass blowing started. Glass blowing started with a glass blowpipe, and he is actually using a glass tube as his blowpipe.
就是有一个理论是说，玻璃吹制的起源是来自于巴勒斯坦地区，在金属吹管被发明以后，才出现了玻璃吹制工艺。但是Durk 他并不相信这个理论，他觉得玻璃吹制的起源是来自于玻璃吹管。然后在这个图里就可以看到，这位艺术家他用的就是他的吹管就是玻璃材质的，而不是金属。
And the beautiful thing with the glass blowpipe is that when it gets too short, you blow a bubble and you stretch it, and you have another, and you have a long blowpipe again.
对于玻璃吹管来说，比较有意思的一点就是，当你发現你的吹管太短的时候，你就吹一个泡泡，然后把它拉长，它就变成了一个新的玻璃吹管。
And his blowpipe looked like a bamboo stick with all the rings.
然后这个玻璃吹管就看起来像竹子一样，就会有一节一节的。
I visited some other small production studios in Japan. This is Mr. Kotani. He has a small workshop in his backyard. Also, because fuel always has been very expensive in Japan, he fires it up in the morning, works until dinner time, and then closes it off.
这是一位日本的玻璃吹制艺术家，然后他在自己家的后院有这么一个小型的吹制工作室，然后因为在日本的燃料非常的昂贵，所以他每天早上把这个炉子热起来，然后吹到晚上以后就把它关掉。
And also the technique of having the melting chamber and the cooling chamber connected, like the furnaces in the Middle East, in Egypt, have been operating.
然后这一个容料设备和一个冷却设备相连接的这样一种设施，是在古埃及开始就已经出现的一种工艺。
Actually, on the way back from Japan, I visited Singapore, where my brother lives, and Malaysia, and my father was really an educator and making people enthusiastic about and helping them with their dreams. And he met this princess to the court of Yahur in Malaysia, and her dream was she ever since she was a small child, walking along the beach, she would find these we call them floats, a big glass bubble that were used by fishermen.
然后他在从日本回家的路中路经了新加坡的马来西亚，他的兄弟在那边，然后他的当地的一个公主就说他一直都有一个想法，就是他会在海边收集到一些漂浮着的玻璃泡泡，这个是当时渔民打鱼的时候用的一种东西。
And her dream was always to be able to make these bubbles herself.
那个公主她就一直有个梦想，她想亲自去制作这种玻璃泡泡。
So we told her, no problem. We need some bricks and a burner, and we built your furnace, and you can blow your bubbles.
然后他们说没问题，我们就需要几块砖，一个点火器，我们就可以帮你建造一个小型的玻璃熔炉，然后你就可以去吹自己的玻璃了。
The only problem was that a bottle of LPG that would last her for a month in the kitchen, she used in one day. On the furnace.
唯一的问题就是他们用的燃料，他在厨房里用的话可以用1个月，但是用在热玻璃吹制上面只能用1天。
So she ran it very seldomly, but the situation in America at that moment, I'm talking about early 80s, like 82, 83. Was again a hunger for information, also technical information, and there were groups of people that were getting together. This is when the Glass Art Society also started, and I show you a booklet that was published around the conference in Colorado, the hot glass information exchange, and that was also a pivotal moment in developing not only the artistic development of glass, but also the technical development of glass.
在80年代早期，在美国同样也是有一群非常对玻璃艺术、对玻璃知识和玻璃技术饥渴的艺术家，然后在那个时候 Gas Conference 玻璃艺术协会也应运而生。当时的时候在科罗拉多出版了刚刚图片中的那一本书《热玻璃》，然后这是一个对玻璃艺术和玻璃技术来说都是非常关键的一个时间节点。
And we visited the studio where next to the glory hole they had the television, so when they were working they could watch television while reading.
在他们那个时候，在这个六火炉旁边还有一台小电视，所以他们做玻璃的时候还可以看一下电视。
But also people that started small factories, like in California, a company called Orient and Fume that was very famous for a special type of glassware with a chemical oxidation and deposit, and it was a factory.
在当时，很多的小型工厂也开始建设起来，然后这是当时的一个在一种玻璃工艺上特别出名的一个小工厂。
And I was asked to give a lecture at the California College of Arts and Crafts, where I was demonstrating in 1968, and now I was back in 1982, and the technology, the furnace technology, was really sometimes works of art, not very efficient, but quite beautiful, like small. They call them R2D2 from the science from the movie.
对他来说，制造玻璃容料炉不单是一门技术，也是一个艺术。然后这个小炉子就被叫做 R2D2， 就是那个星球大战里的那个角色。
And a kiln for fusing out of found materials, almost like objet d'art.
然后这个是一个热熔的炉子，长得很像尤达大师。
But not very energy efficient. Most just had a big opening in the side of the furnace with a big, very noisy burner, heat everywhere, because energy was cheap.
这个设备并不是一个对能源比较友好的设备，它就是开了一个很大的洞，然后有一个非常大的点火装置在朝里面加热，然后因为在那个年代能源还没有那么昂贵，所以当时是一个非常耗能源的一个设备。
But the colleges and institutions were given quite a lot of money, so they could invest in professional equipment with also some energy efficiency.
在当时，大学也获得了很多的资金援助来进行一些能源比较清洁能源的设备的研究。
And I was also building equipment for people all over the world. This is in America, in Vermont. Again, a studio with a furnace, the annealer attached to it, and then up here, heat exchanger for making hot water to heat the house.
然后他也在世界各地帮大家建造这个玻璃炉子，然后这是他在美国建造的一个综合性的玻璃炉，然后有一个取料炉，然后旁边有一个退火炉，楼上有一个加热装置可以用来烧水。
This is a studio in Paris, in the middle of the city. The furnace I built initially in Switzerland. But when they moved after 20 years, I helped them move the furnace.
这是他在瑞典造的一个炉子，然后20年以后，他们把它移到了另外一个地方。
And I was even building equipment for industry. This is a furnace that I built for the Orrefors glass factory in Sweden. That they were using for special melt for development of colors and.
他也在为工业生产设计一些玻璃取料炉，这是他在瑞典为一家工厂设计的，用来做颜色试验的取料炉。
This is a studio on Bali, Indonesia.
这是一个在印度尼西亚巴厘岛的玻璃工作室。
And this is in New Zealand.
这个是在新西兰。
Höglund art glass with some SMC details. This is the pipe cooler.
那个是一个吹管冷却装置。
Studio in Australia.
这是在澳大利亚的。
And I was in 1994. I was asked to be a managing director of crystal work in Holland, at the town of Leerdam.
在1994年，我任职这个玻璃工作室的一个主管。
With big furnaces, changing the melting crucible.
因为有一个特别大的设备，所以我们也就是熔料的那个方式也有点不一样。
And when I was responsible for production, I organized a small symposium inviting factory glass workers from Murano in Italy, and from Sweden, and from the academy in Amsterdam, to learn from each other.
当我被任命做一个生产方面的工作的时候，我召集了来自意大利穆拉诺的玻璃吹制师，然后来自瑞典的，来自各个地方的。集合在一起，互相学习。
And this led to a 3-month-long event in Leerdam, centered around the drinking glass, the drinking vessel.
在当时举办了一个很大的活动，是关于酒杯那些用来装液体的玻璃容器。
So there was many different exhibitions of old glass, modern glass, futuristic glass, but to be able to show the public how glass is made, we built a temporary studio.
在当时有很多的展览来展示历史上的当代的比较先锋的各种各样的玻璃，然后在当时为了更好的展示玻璃是如何被制作的，他们做了一个临时的热玻璃工作室。
And I moved my furnace and equipment from my studio in Amsterdam to this studio in Leerdam. And we, because I didn't want to spend 3 months blowing glasses, I invited many friends and colleagues from all over the world, from Japan, from Australia, from America, from European countries, to come and blow glass.
在那个时候，他把他在阿姆斯特丹的玻璃设备全部挪到了利恩丹这个城市，然后因为他不想自己吹3个月的玻璃，所以他邀请了世界各地的玻璃艺术家来一起来做一个吹制。
And for young students making glass, there's always not enough time to practice. And we were offering them 3 weeks. This guy from America, Anthony Schaefermeyer, he spent almost 3 months there. He was in America. He was an assistant to a studio, but here, and he could maybe work a few hours on Saturday to do his own work and to train himself. and here he could make his own work for 3 months.
作为一个年轻的艺术家来说，有一个很大的困难，就是没有办法在玻璃吹制这个工艺上面花足够多的时间学习。然后刚刚这位学生，他就是能够在大师的帮助下花3个月的时间，去用业余时间去不断的精进自己的技术。
And we had people visiting, and it was a big success.
然后我们也有很多的观光客，这个博览会就是一个非常巨大的成功。
People were helping each other and training and learning from each other.
然后艺术家们都能够互相学习、互相训练，然后共同进步。
This is a studio in a living room in Denmark.
这是在丹麦一个建造在起居室里的一个热玻璃工作室。
And this is setting up a studio for a conference in Amsterdam. The Glass Art Society from America asked me to organize a conference in Amsterdam, and to have enough space for public demonstration. The only possibility was to build a temporary studio on a boat, on a barge.
这是美国的玻璃艺术协会在邀请他在阿姆斯特丹举办一场玻璃艺术研讨会，然后当时为了能够让更多的公众看到玻璃吹制，他们把这个工作室建在了一艘船上。
So the boat with the studio was in the canal, and the road opposite was filled with people.
这个工作室在船上，然后在运河里开，然后两边的岸上就全部都是围观的群众。
And we had glass blowing demonstrations from people from all over the world.
同样也是世界各地的玻璃吹制大师在船上进行一个演示。
And after the conference, which was 3 days, and it was over, we were looking for a studio to have a more permanent location, not for 3 days, but for longer. So we found just outside Amsterdam, we found an old industrial site and set up a studio there.
然后这个玻璃研讨会是3天的时间，3天之后他们想要把这个工作室建造在一个更为永久的地方，所以他们在阿姆斯特丹的外围找到了一个工业区，然后把这个工作室建成。
And we do special projects for designers, for people that come to work by themselves. And we are melting special colors for people.
我们为设计师建造特殊样式的玻璃，我们也会去融一些比较特殊的颜色。
And we organize special events. This was a glass spinning event with music done by a Canadian artist at our studio.
我们也会举办一些比较独特的活动，然后这是一个玻璃旋转活动，然后就是伴随着音乐，是一个来自加拿大的玻璃艺术家设计的这个活动。
and the studio is getting more and more crowded.
然后这个工作室就变得越来越多的人来。
And this is a antique dealer, and so we did some trick glasses, which were very popular in the 18th century.
这是一个古董交易商，所以我们为他做了一个比较独特的高脚杯。这种样式在18世纪非常的流行。
And we gave residency to a young artist that won a special prize in Ebeltoft in Denmark at the Glass Museum there. And he's working. He's actually painting or drawing on glass with using glass enamels.
然后我们也会为年轻的艺术家提供驻场项目。然后这是一个在丹麦一个博物馆获得了奖学金的艺术家，他的擅长点是在用玻璃颜料在玻璃上绘画。
And we have designers with special projects. This was a recycle project for a big company that is dealing with recycled glass, and he wanted to make to upgrade the recycled glass, not only use it again to melt bottle glass, but to do something with it more directly. And he was working with a glass blower from the Czech Republic.
然后我们也会给很多设计师提供一些项目的支持。这是一个回收玻璃的项目，就是来自于工厂的玻璃，他们不想要像啤酒瓶一样只是做简单的回收，而是让它去完成一个比较艺术化的表达。
And in the meantime, I was still building equipment and developing new equipment and developing new ways of making it more energy efficient.
然后与此同时，我也在积极的去建造新的设备，让它变得更加的清洁能源，变得更加的有高效。
This is a studio in Paris with a SMC hexagon door.
然后这是一个在 Paris 的玻璃工作室，然后有我们 SMS 公司的那个炉门。
And just to, because you are asked for it, to show you some of my own work. This is from way back, and this is actually work that I had at my final show when I was doing my bachelor's at and master's at Rietveld Academy.
接下来他会展示一些他自己创作的艺术作品，这是他在学生期间的毕业作品。
This was very, in a way, poetic work as well. But after my time in the Czech Republic, I switched to more cold working technique, more grinding.
从捷克毕业以后，他的工艺就转向了冷加工。
This is from 1985, I think.
这是1985年的。
It's about 15 by 15 centimeter.
就是大概15乘15厘米的一个作品。
And I started to do more combination of casting techniques and cold work grinding techniques and polishing.
然后我开始去尝试去融合铸造工艺和冷加工的打磨抛光工艺。
This is combining glass and neon.
这个是结合了铸造玻璃和霓虹灯。
Another picture of the studio in the free glass studio in Amsterdam.
这是另一张在阿姆斯特丹的玻璃工作室的图片。
And since I really enjoy melting colors, I was melting my own color and casting it in shapes. This is I call these series accolade, like you have on some words in Western.
就是因为他对玻璃的颜色非常感兴趣，所以他会他会去创造溶解自己的玻璃颜色，并且把它们作为一个铸造的作品。
This is an erbium pink. Erbium is a oxide.
这是一种氧化的粉色。
And I got away from making everything very polished to very flat, and because I'm interested to show the technique behind making. So this is my series of I sometimes call them happy faces because you can see an image in the work.
然后他验证了去把他的作品抛得很光滑、很规整，他想去展示这个玻璃作品创造背后的工艺的价值，所以他的创作就到了下一个阶段。然后那些作品他喜欢叫他们为笑脸。
But I blow glass as well, even though I call myself a recreational glass blower.
他也会做一些垂直玻璃，但是他更喜欢称自己为再创作的垂直玻璃。
And I would like to finish with showing some work that my wife Anna Kalgan has been making.
然后他想以他妻子的一些玻璃艺术作品作为这次演讲的结尾。
She's also a glass blower.
他也是一个玻璃垂直艺术家。
Also designing for industry.
他也会为工业做一些设计。
And for industry, it's always important to design products that you can make also when the glass is not so good at the end of the day. So in the morning you start with the clear work, and then at the end of the day when there's some bubbles in the glass and some chords, you make the same object but in a different technique. So you can empty the glass.
对于工业生产来说，很重要的一点就是，即使是质量不那么好的玻璃，也要能够被利用起来。所以在早上的时候，就是像第一张图片那样非常干净的一个状态。然后到了晚上，因为那个玻璃被使用多次以后变得浑浊，出现很多气泡，他们就会用一种略微不同的工艺，同样的去把这些比较多气泡的材料也利用起来。
And she is very interested in the optical possibilities of glass. So this is a series of, she calls this her soft cube.
他的妻子对玻璃的透光性和折光性这些特性也非常的感兴趣，所以他去创作这样的作品。
Is that mine? Sorry. It should stop. And another work. Cutting lenses and multiplying what people see. Turning the world upside down.
去把这个世界上下颠倒，然后去切很多的放大镜的效果出来。
That was it.
这就是今天演讲的内容，非常感谢。然后接下来
Any questions?
Yeah. 现在进入问答环节，如果大家有问题想和艺术家交流的话，请举手示意，我们将随机选取4到5个问题，请艺术家解答。
Thanks for the lecture. Thanks for sharing. And I have one question because I'm not I know nothing about glass, and I heard from some that told me that while the furnace turns on, so it could not be turned off suddenly, or it would damage the part or damage the kiln. So is that true?
That depends. If you look at big industrial furnaces, they cannot be turned off, and old traditional furnaces, they cannot be turned off because of the type of refractory material. But smaller furnaces, like even the ones that you are having here, you can easily turn them off because the people that say that they either think about big industrial furnaces that take such a long time to heat up, and when you turn them off, you have to. Sometimes these furnaces, they hold maybe 600 ton, 600,000 kilos of glass. So yes, you cannot turn those furnaces off, or big furnaces in industry where they're melting every night, where they're producing every day. They are made out of refractory materials that will damage when you turn them off. But the world has changed the last decades, and now there are materials also the melting crucibles for glass, the old types out of clay, out of Sagar type clay. If you cool them down after you've used them, the crucible will break. But these crucibles that hopefully arrive tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, they are made out of a refractory material that can withstand cooling down and heating up, and cooling down and heating up. So there's some truth in it, but it's only true for big industry. But for small studios, no problem. Everybody in Japan, when I visited in the 70s, everybody was turning their furnaces off, and just traditionally in the Far East, even in Roman times, they were. It's interesting that they were not melting batch; they were melting cullet that was shipped over from the Palestine area, and they were turning the furnaces off and then back on again and off. So it's true, but also not true.
Thank you.
刚刚的问题是因为这位 这位提问的观众他不是很懂这个玻璃工艺，然后他听说玻璃的容料炉一旦被开启以后就不可以被关掉，一旦被关掉就会出现损坏，所以他想知道是不是真的。然后 Derek 的回答是，作为非常大型的工业生产用的玻璃熔炉来说，他们可能承重有将近6吨的热玻璃，这种窑炉它一旦被关掉就是非常危险的。但是对于小型的工作室、小型的玻璃设备来说，是完全没有问题。然后它当然也要取决于建造这个玻璃熔炉的材料。作为我们陶溪川玻璃工作室来说，我们获得的这个玻璃熔炉内部的那个材料，它是可以承受升温降温升温降温这样一个反复冷却收缩的过程的。所以说这是一个真的，但也不全是，因为时代在进步，工业也在发展，然后材料也在不断的提升，所以现在对于一些小型的吹制窑炉来说，把它关掉是完全没有问题的。在他70年代去访问日本的时候，当时那边的艺术家每天都会重新开启炉子，然后每天晚上都会关掉炉子。然后包括历史上来说，在古罗马的时候，他们那时候也是有一个开关炉子的动作。对。
你好，就是我看到你在各种不同的地方建造过那个玻璃熔炉，然后我想问一下，就是如果是像个人工作室或者是这种小型的搭建这种玻璃熔炉的话，对于它的安全性方面需要有什么考虑的吗？然后比如它的空间会有什么要求吗？谢谢。
She wanna know because you're building the furnace all over the world. She wanna know if we wanna build a small furnace, a small glass studio by ourselves. Is there safety issues or requirements for the space?
Yes, but well, that depends on local regulations. But as you saw, that furnace in Malaysia, it was just under a roof outside, and the safety regulations don't have to be more complicated than for the safety regulations in the kitchen. Using LPG gas. So yes, it is an important consideration, and you should check with the local authorities. But it's not so difficult. I've also been building wood-fired glass furnaces that I never asked for any permission. I just needed a lot of wood and a crucible and a lot of people, because you have to fire it here. If you fire wood-fired kiln, it's 24-hour or 36 hours or 48 hours of continuous work. So you have to have a whole team of people melting the glass. But yes, it's possible. But no problem.
就是对于个人想要建造小型玻璃工作室的安全性，它是非常取决于不同的地方、不同的政府对它产生的一些规则。像他在马来西亚建的那个工作室，就完全是露天的，然后有一个顶棚就好了。然后，但是这非常取决于当地的一些规则。然后，他也曾经建造过完全是烧木头的那个取料炉，然后但是。他也没有去征得过任何人的同意，他就做了。然后如果是木头的熔料炉的话，需要可能1天、2天、3天的时间，有大量的人力在维持着那个温度，在不断的去烧那个木柴。我要念一遍。我们现在有一个线上的问题。Hi Derek, thank you for interested talking. My name is Jing Huang. My question is, what advice do you have for young artists who want to experiment with hot glass in China? 问题是，一个叫黄基的艺术家在线上提出的，他想问 Durk 有没有针对中国的年轻的玻璃艺术家，想要学习玻璃工艺，有没有什么建议？
Well, the most obvious answer would be to contact the Glass Center here and book time to be able to work at the center. But I also have friends that just get together and built a small furnace like an extended barbecue and just have a weekend of fun building something and firing it and blowing some bubbles. But if you really want to learn about the material and to have the opportunity to develop your own craft and to develop your own ideas, come here.
Thank you. 对，最好的建议当然是作为玻璃艺术家，想要更系统、更好的学习玻璃艺术的话，就要来到我们陶溪川玻璃工作室，然后进行一个更系统的学习。然后他也有一些年轻的朋友，就像在后院里面建一个烧烤的炉子那样，去建一个小型的玻璃工作室。这当然，可能在国外比较可行吧，但是在中国就比较困难一点。然后在中国，如果想要系统的学习，能够非常好的去发展自己的技艺、自己的想法，还是非常欢迎来到我们陶溪川玻璃工作室。
老师您好，我想问一下，这个玻璃艺术在中国想要更长久、更好的发展下去，你认为最应该解决的首要的问题有哪些？谢谢。
He want to know if China want to be able to develop glass art in a very long, sustainable way, and what's the biggest, like the main problem we need to focus on?
Well, I think one of the main problems is actually energy. It becomes more and more stringent to reduce energy to have a world for our children and grandchildren. So finding ways to minimize energy consumption. That was also one of the design properties of the studio here, to make it as energy efficient as possible. And that is, I think, a challenge for everybody that wants to work with glass in this century.
对他来说，建造一个玻璃工作室最大的难点可能就是在于能源，因为这个环境。然后包括我们想要让我们的子孙后代都能有一个非常好的生存环境，所以我们应该更关注在于能源的高效的清洁的利用这一点。
And that's why I think it's important to realize that if you want to have the best quality crystal glass, maybe you have to find a collaboration with a bigger factory. But if you want to experiment with the material, keep in mind that you don't need 800 kilos of glass. You can do with 20 kilos of glass, and you can actually do it by starting it in the morning and working maybe not one day, but have it on for a weekend to make the work. Your work often needs time to finish it. So after the weekend, you stop the energy of the furnace, and then you take a week to finish the work, and then you need to sell it. So there's no need to like in the old days, especially the schools and academies in Amsterdam, in America, they expect to be able to have 24/7 access to hot glass, and that's not so realistic anymore. And why would you need to have access to hot glass 24/7? So.
对，作为年轻的艺术家，对于我们这些创作者来说，我们也应该把这一点记在心里。就是如果我们想要非常完美、纯净的高质量的玻璃，我们可以去借助工厂。但是如果我们只是做一些个人的创作，我们有时候我们并不需要那么大量的玻璃材料的时候，我们可以去更高效、更加有规律的去利用这些玻璃设备。因为它们一旦开起来就是非常耗能源的，所以我们可以比如说花1个周末的时间去把所有吹制的工作都做掉，然后我们就可以把这个炉子先关一段时间，这样就不会损耗那么多能源。因为在美国很多的院校的玻璃吹制玻璃专业，他们都是想要保证学生有全天24小时，然后每一天都有这个能够利用热玻璃的机会。在这个世纪来说，这样子的机会已经越来越不现实了，因为我们必须要考虑到能源的使用这一点。然后非常感谢大家的参与，由于时间关系，提问环节到此结束。感谢大家参与今晚的讲座，也非常感谢 Durk 为我们带来的精彩内容。下周我们还将邀请美国艺术家 Linda Cosben 和 Lini Daria 分享她的创作经历，请大家持续关注陶溪川国际教育平台，我们还将推出更多的精彩课程与活动。请大家